What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the Brown Gen. Today, we're going to talk about Nano Dimensions, our favorite 3D printing company. There's been some crazy updates here, a real strange twist of fate where we went from Nano Dimensions trying to usurp the board of directors of a company called Stratasys, and now another company has come back called Murchison, and they're trying to get their people as the board of directors within Nano Dimensions. All that and more, we're going to cover that in this video. But before we get into it, if you haven't done it already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share the video with someone that you know that you want to learn about or that you want to be aware of Nano Dimensions. So let's get going here and show what's going on with Nano Dimensions recently. So as you know, as a quick recap, I posted about this maybe earlier this week or over the weekend, where Murchison basically issued a presentation saying, hey, we've got to change Nano Dimension. We've got to change the board of directors, and that the shares of Nano Dimensions have declined more than 77% during Mr. Yoav Stern's chairmanship, and the company currently has a negative enterprise value of more than $400 million. Now, Murchison is somewhat known, from what I've heard, to just come in, extract max value from a company, and then sell it off for its various pieces. So as a long-term holder of Nano Dimensions, I don't want that to happen if that's the case. And we know that Nano Dimensions is currently very lucrative. As a reminder, Nano Dimensions sits with a market cap of $734 million and a total equity of between $1.2 to $1.3 billion, meaning that if you sold every single share of Nano Dimensions today, and if you got $2.90 for them, let's say you got $2.90 for every share, or even $3, you would almost double your money by taking the entire company apart and liquidating it, and you'd have full ownership. So there's a lot of suspicion on the interwebs that this is sort of the case with Murchison, and it's super funny because, as I mentioned, it wasn't too long ago where Nano Dimensions was talking about the same thing to replace the Stratasys board and basically bring in their directors to take over the company. Now, as we know, this didn't come to fruition, and Nano Dimensions has sort of pulled away from the entire Stratasys deal that they have with, I think it's 3D desktop metal systems. But what Nano Dimensions has finally done is, in response to what Murchison has put out there, they have sent a letter to shareholders. In fact, I have something waiting for me to read downstairs. I got it in the mail today. And basically, what they're saying here is, hey, protect your investment and the future of the company by voting today for all 9 of Nano's highly qualified nominees. As a reminder, this annual meeting will take place on September 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Shareholders of record as the business close on July 31st are entitled to vote at the meeting, and your votes must be received by noon Eastern on August 31st. You'll get the instructions on the voting form that has been sent to you. I got mine downstairs. I'm going to be voting to keep Yoav Stern, to keep the directors. And this letter is exactly what's sitting downstairs for me. I was looking through it earlier. At the upcoming AGM, or annual general meeting, you have an important decision to make regarding the future of your investment in Nano Dimensions. I'm not going to go over this again, but basically protect the long-term value creation opportunity that those shares present. And they really just cover that they're executing on a growth strategy buoyed by strong fundamentals, includes a disciplined, diligently developed merger and acquisition strategy focused on driving synergy value and delivering strong organic growth from leading technology development and innovation efforts. I'll be honest with you here, while they talk about Nano's current strategy producing results, I have to give it to Yoav Stern. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Most companies, and ironically, I was talking about this with a friend today, we were surprised that Bionanogenomics, a sort of speculative optical genome mapping company, didn't do any sort of share offerings to dilute their investors when they were sitting at all-time highs of $15. Meanwhile, and because of that, they've had to dilute as they've burned a ton of cash in this bear market, even when the stock was $4. And now the stock has done a 10-to-1 reverse split and is on sort of just continued decline. Compare that with Nano Dimensions, which obviously it's not great news that they've dropped significantly, but I think a lot of these sort of non-profitable companies have dropped in the bear market. But Yoav Stern did something that they didn't. He countered the liquidity by doing share offering after share offering after share offering, because he knew that this gravy train was going to end, all this free money sitting around. So instead of keeping Nano Dimensions at an incredible share price, instead of doing that and saying, hey, you know what, our shares will be 20, 30 bucks, and they likely would have went to 50 without the dilutions. He was like, hey, I want to lock this value in the company because I know we're going to need it. Not just that, but even when he sort of took or accumulated this value within the company, he was very frugal with the way he spent it. There were so many times I'd watch him on interviews talking about SPAC mania and how a lot of companies are overvalued and they were only looking for really good synergy and only really good deals. So I completely disagree with the assessment by Murchison. Like I said, I have no vested interest in sort of any of these people being on here besides just being a shareholder. But Yoav Stern has really shown to me over the last couple of years, especially in the bull market, that he's making the right decisions. Even though at the time I didn't like them, but looking in the rearview mirror, now that I'm sort of holding the stock, I'm happy he did that, right? Otherwise, yes, I would have made a ton of money swinging the company, but the company wouldn't have done as well, right? And I think that's his number one goal. The number one goal here is the company doing well. On top of that, he's even invested his own money. Yes, I know people will say, yes, he's sold some of his shares. Guess what? He's allowed to do that. But he's taking his own money and putting it into the company, and he still has a bunch of those shares still. So they're strong, and here he highlights this. Their strong cash management has resulted in substantial cash firepower to continue to build our business, unlike any of our peers. We continue to see significant opportunities ahead, and we are ideally positioned to act as a consolidator in a highly fragmented market landscape with numerous attractive potential targets. As evidence of our prudent and balanced approach to capital allocation, the Nano board has recently approved an authorization to repurchase $227.5 million in American depository shares. So this is another news event that happened on the 7th. So this was on the Monday. Basically, they initiated a repurchase plan of stock, which authorizes the company to repurchase ADSs from time to time in open market transactions or in privately negotiated transactions. And basically, this repurchase will be made in accordance with the SEC's sort of law and regulations, and they can repurchase all or a portion of the authorized repurchase amount. Now, it doesn't obligate the company to repurchase any specific number of the ADSs and may be suspended or terminated at any time at management's discretion. Obviously, great news. Companies only buy back their stock when things are going well because they want to transfer the capital to having more ownership of the stock, pulling stock back out of circulation, reducing sort of the stock that's outstanding. This is what companies like Meta and Apple and others have been doing because they're being so successful. So it's great to see Nano Dimensions doing this. Now, if you're wondering what an ADS is or an American depository share, this is sort of how it works. Basically, if you're an investor, whether you're in the US or Canada or you're working with a US broker, you can't buy these shares directly because it's a company on the Israel stock market. I think that's what it's called, the Israeli stock market. So you have a broker that you will buy ADSs from, and they purchase that. They purchase these American depository shares, a financial product that can be used for any sort of foreign shares, and that is what they can sell to US or American investors, right? The ADS is like your IOU receipt for a share that they can sort of swap with those companies. And this is sort of how all of this works, right? You have a shell company holding all these shares, they purchase those shares, they give you the IOUs to those shares, and now you're able to invest in this company. So that's what that means if you're sort of wondering, okay? Sort of going back to the letter, here's what they're saying about Murchison. And I think it's hilarious because there's a ton of drama. Obviously, we want the drama to subside because regardless, this is not positive. This is not positive for investors. Do you see this? There's a lot of turmoil. You're like, well, if I have to pick between a company like this or another company, most likely I'm going to pick the company that doesn't have this kind of drama, right? So they're claiming that Murchison is seeking to gain control of your company without paying a premium for its own self-interest. Their goal is to remove 9 directors, 7 of whom are independent, all of whose skills are critical to board oversight. Our nominees are exceptionally qualified directors with diverse skills and expertise across the 3D printing and digital cloud manufacturing industry, capital markets, corporate finance, and strategic business development in both US, Europe, and Israel. They highlight somebody, Mr. Sarfati, a senior analyst and employee of Murchison, provided telling commentary in his July 2023 court testimony in response to questions from a court judge in Israel regarding their understanding of their business activities for Nano Dimension and valuation. What he said was, I don't analyze the activity because I don't understand 3D printing. So why the hell would we want this person on the board? And then he says, we really have no idea what is not good and what is not good to do here. With no insight into the business, one can only conclude that their intention is to take control and liquidate Nano's cash assets without regard for realizing Nano's long-term value for shareholders. Murchison's campaign is a blatant attempt to undermine our efforts to build and maximize long-term value for all shareholders. We believe these actions are a blatant attempt are motivated by Murchison's desire to elevate its own profile and for a quick profit, gaining access to the company's significant cash reserves at the expense of substantial long-term value creation potential for other shareholders. Their efforts to manipulate Nano stock with the help of collaborators has resulted in the estimated cost basis of $2.50 per share. And this is sort of what I'm saying here. They stand to generate a 60% return in 12 months by seeking to liquidate the company at $4 per share. Doing so would deprive you of considerable upside as Nano continues to execute on a strategy. So this is sort of where they're sort of saying, hey, look, if you want to sort of proceed with Nano Dimension long-term, help us ensure the security of our cash reserves and our directors, because these people are coming in, they're like parasites. They just want to take the company apart, make that quick premium that's sitting there. And guess what? That premium is only sitting there because of Yoav Stern and the current board of directors. Murchison didn't do any of this. Murchison just wants to be the one to come in and say, oh my God, these people, they think people are stupid that, hey, we can buy these shares at a significant premium, right? I think, what does he say, like 2.5? Let me just go back here. How much are they going to offer us? Yeah, cost basically of $2.50 a share, and then they'll get $4 a share for it, so $1.50. A fantastic 60% profit, and you're the one who's going to lose out. This is why I'm voting to keep Nano Dimension's board intact. Also, basically, Nano Dimension put out an article today that Murchison could not find board nominees to join them, right? So one of their director nominees is our prior chairman of the board, Ophir. This is the same Ophir that left the company board to support the exponential growth, in quotation, that's funny, they're throwing a bunch of shade on this guy, of a $20 million ventilator business, which alas, turned into a failed business adventure since then. The same Ophir, in his farewell remarks, that under the exceptional guidance of our CEO, Yoav Stern, Nano has transformed into a viable and momentous force in the world of electronics. And this guy, Ophir, served on the board of directors for about 6 years, while the share price of the company went down from $88 a share to less than $2 a share. Not a good story. Now he eventually, where is this? Like, there's a ton of other things that they sort of mention here, but obviously at the end of the day, like, they urge people to once again protect their investment and vote for the Nano qualified nominees and against the Murchison proposals. Remember, August 7th is the meeting, but you have until August 31st for your votes to be received. So if you're serious about Nano Dimensions, I'd recommend voting. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I've explained why I voted the way I have. We've already talked about the share repurchase plan, so maybe we'll talk about Nano Dimensions just in general. The stock today, traded flat. It was up slightly in the morning, sort of traded up and down over the last 5 days. It's actually up 3% when they addressed the sort of Murchison issue. Over the last month, it's down about 6.75%. Last 6 months, it's up 13%. And overall year, it's up 25%. Obviously, we are still a long way to go, from the local highs sitting back around $15 to $17 back in early 2021. What I would mention as a reminder is I made a video yesterday around CPI, and we sort of talked about if we sort of saw a 0.2 inflation record, the stock market would rally. Less than 0.2, the market would boom. And if it was worse, if it was higher, like 0.25, 0.3, 0.4, the market would come down. So we actually had a meet. It was 0.2, and the inflation gauge only rose 3.2%, which was less than expected. So what that means for us, right, because you see the prices accelerated seasonally adjusted 0.2, this was fantastic news. And in fact, the S&P 500 in the morning rallied about, what was it like? 0.7 here, but pre-market it was up about 1.2% before it actually cooled down and went the other way. In fact, it closed the day in the red, which is weird, but you can never sort of trust sort of the market moves because it's just one part of the overall picture. There's a ton of things going on. There's tons of fear. The idea here is it was it was a good result, and we want to see more of this. And we'll find out in the latest FOMC meeting that's coming up whether or not Jerome Powell and his team plan on increasing the interest rates, right? I think we're sitting at 5.25%. And if you look at Nano Dimension right here, we take a look, we're sitting right at the middle of the Bollinger Bands at 2.91. We're also sitting slightly below 50 on the RSI, which means, we're not oversold quite yet, but we were oversold on Friday, which is why we saw this drastic bounce, right? What you want to do when you look at these sort of metrics is really look at a bunch of things on confluence. So a couple of things here I mentioned. Number one, we have a support zone sitting here at 2.76, right? This line right here. We also had the Bollinger Band sitting here, right? This is the bottom of the Bollinger Band. And as you know, from the Bollinger Bands, they want to kind of bounce, think of it like a spring. Either side you go, you want to sort of get to the middle. Either you extend it or you push it down. It sort of wants to come to the middle. So that's the second thing that was confluence. And the third thing was the RSI showed that it was oversold. So it's no surprise that it didn't take long for the stock to rally. This is sort of the mechanisms that you should be looking at because they help you with trades. Now, as you know, Nano Dimensions, I'm not really trading it. I'm really holding it for the long term. I'm waiting for prices above $20. I do have a few swing shares, but they're not significant. And this is a stock that, I'll be honest with you, I am down on because I initially bought 600 shares around 12 bucks. This is after selling a ton. So I made a ton of profit on Nano Dimensions before, but then I cost myself a ton of money and I'm down in my current position because of it. And Nano Dimensions hasn't really recovered significantly for me to have made my money back. But I'm not worried about it. Like I said, this is why this is not a huge part of my portfolio. As a reminder, I only hold 3 decently sized positions in my spec portfolio: Mara or Marathon Digital Holdings, a Bitcoin miner, Zomedica, that's 3D printing, that's Nano Dimension. Nano Dimensions, that 3D printing stock, and Zomedica, the pet healthcare company whose earnings we covered earlier today. So I think, once again, I hope we sort of get all the way past this and we have a fantastic earnings call, which is going to happen. Where is this? The next earnings call is sitting on August 21st. So hopefully we have fantastic earnings and we'll see a run up that breaks beyond this $3.3 range. But only time will tell. We don't have a crystal ball. If you've watched the video so far and you like it, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share the video. I want to thank you all for your attention right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.